I'm 28 years old, and I just closed on a 3-bedroom house worth $340,000 without telling my girlfriend of 4 years. She thinks we're saving together for our future home. She has no idea the future home is already mine and hers isn't invited. Before I continue, if you're enjoying this wild story, go ahead and hit subscribe so you never miss updates like this, and drop a like if you're still listening. Before I get into what happened next, I want to know where you're watching this from. Are you listening while driving to work? Maybe you're cooking dinner or hitting the gym right now. Drop a comment and let me know what city or country you're in. And if you're enjoying the story so far, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps get these stories out to more people who need to hear them. And if you're not subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe because I share stories like this every week. Real situations from real people dealing with relationships, family drama, and life decisions that'll make you think. All right, now let me tell you how this whole thing started, and trust me, it gets intense. The relationship started falling apart exactly 11 months ago on a Saturday afternoon at 2:37 p.m. when I suggested we open a joint savings account specifically for a house down payment. We were at her parents' place for lunch, and I thought it was the perfect time to bring it up since her dad worked in real estate. I mentioned that I'd been saving aggressively and had about $45,000 set aside, and if she could contribute, we could probably have enough for a down payment within 18 months. Her mother's face lit up immediately, but my girlfriend's expression was something I'll never forget. She looked at me like I'd just asked her to donate a kidney. She said she didn't think it made sense for her to put money toward a house right now because she had student loans to pay off and she was planning to go back to school for her master's degree, and what if we broke up, then her money would be stuck in a house. Her dad tried to explain that's not how property ownership works, but she cut him off and said she just wasn't comfortable mixing finances like that. I sat there holding my fork while her mom talked about interest rates and her dad showed me listings on his phone, but my girlfriend had checked out completely. She was scrolling through her phone, not even pretending to care. That's when I realized something that would change everything. She talked constantly about our future together, about getting married someday, about the life we'd build, but when it came to actually building that life, she had zero interest in contributing. What happened next completely validated every suspicion I had about where I stood in her priorities. The drive home was quiet and tense. I asked her directly if she even wanted to buy a house with me eventually, and she said of course she did, but not right now and maybe in a few years when she was more established. I asked what more established meant since she'd been working the same job for 3 years, making $52,000 annually. She got defensive and said I was being pushy and aggressive about timelines, and that not everyone had family money to fall back on like I did. That comment hit different because my family didn't give me money. My grandfather left me $15,000 when he died, and I invested it carefully and worked 60-hour weeks for 3 years to save the rest. Every dollar in my savings account came from me sacrificing vacations and new cars and eating out while she got her nails done every 2 weeks and bought designer bags and took girls' trips to Miami. But somehow I was the privileged one. I decided that night I was done waiting for her to be ready. If she wouldn't build a future with me, I'd build it without her, and she could decide later if she wanted to be part of it or not. Monday morning at 9:15 a.m. I called a mortgage broker my buddy recommended. Had my pre-approval by Wednesday. $350,000 max budget with 15% down, which meant I needed $52,500 plus closing costs. I had $45,000 saved. Needed $15,000 more. Picked up a contract side project that same week. Web design for a local marketing firm. They needed a complete website overhaul and were paying $12,000 for 6 weeks of work. I said yes immediately. Worked my regular job 8 to 5, then worked the contract project 7 p.m. to midnight every single night. My girlfriend complained I was always on my laptop and never wanted to hang out anymore. I told her I was trying to advance my career, and she said I was becoming obsessed with money. The irony of her calling me money-obsessed while wearing $200 shoes she bought the week before wasn't lost on me. Finished the project in 5 weeks. Got paid $12,000. Picked up another smaller project immediately after. For $1,000 for a logo design and brand package. Finished that in 10 days. Now I had $61,000 total. More than enough. Started house hunting that weekend. Told my girlfriend I was going to visit my parents. She didn't ask any follow-up questions. Didn't even say have a safe drive. You won't believe what I found on my very first day of searching and how perfectly it aligned with everything I'd ever wanted. The house was listed at $335,000 in a neighborhood I'd been watching for 2 years. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, finished basement, huge backyard with mature trees, updated kitchen with granite countertops and stainless appliances, hardwood floors throughout, 2-car garage, and it had been on the market for 47 days because it needed minor cosmetic work. The master bathroom had ugly tile and the basement had paneling from the 1980s, but nothing structural, nothing I couldn't fix myself or hire out later. I walked through it at 11 a.m. on Saturday with a real estate agent I'd contacted through my girlfriend's dad, ironically. Made an offer at 1:30 p.m. the same day. $325,000 with a 30-day close and $5,000 earnest money. Sellers countered at $330,000. I accepted at 2:47 p.m. Drove home feeling like I was floating. My girlfriend was at brunch with friends when I got back. Texted me at 4 p.m. asking what I wanted for dinner. I said, whatever you want, babe. We ate Thai food that night and watched a movie, and she had absolutely no idea I'd just made the biggest purchase of my life without her. She fell asleep on my shoulder during the movie, and I remember looking at her thinking you have no idea what's coming. Part of me felt guilty, but most of me felt relieved that I didn't have to factor her indecision into my future anymore. The next 30 days were the most stressful and exciting of my entire life. Home inspection happened 6 days later. Found minor issues, leaky faucet in the guest bath, some weather stripping needed replacement, dryer vent needed cleaning, nothing major. Inspector said the house was solid and well-maintained. Appraisal came back at $338,000, which meant I had instant equity. Felt like I'd won the lottery. My girlfriend asked me twice during those 30 days why I seemed distracted and if everything was okay. I told her work was stressful and I was dealing with some family stuff. She accepted both answers without pressing and went back to talking about her coworker drama and which restaurants she wanted to try. I was closing on a house in 3 weeks, and she didn't notice a single thing different about me. But the hardest part wasn't keeping the secret. It was what I discovered about our finances when I really started paying attention. I started tracking our spending just out of curiosity. I paid for probably 70% of everything. Rent was split, but I covered utilities because she said her student loans were tight. Groceries were mostly me. Gas for road trips was always me. Dinners out were me unless it was her idea to go somewhere expensive, then suddenly she'd offer to split it. I'd been subsidizing her lifestyle for 4 years while she saved nothing and complained she couldn't afford to buy a house. Meanwhile, she'd bought a $1,400 laptop, gone on 2 trips with friends in the past year that cost at least $2,000 each, regularly got her hair done for $150 every 6 weeks. And her closet was full of clothes I'd never seen her wear twice. She didn't have a money problem. She had a priority problem, and I wasn't her priority. Buying things for herself was. I was just the safety net that made it possible. Closing day was scheduled for Friday the 18th at 10 a.m. Told my girlfriend I had an all-day work training session and wouldn't be reachable. She said okay, cool, and asked if I could pick up groceries on my way home. I said sure. Walked into the title company office at 9:50 a.m. wearing a suit. Sat down at a table with my agent and the title officer and signed 40 pages of documents. Transferred $51,200 via wire for the down payment and closing costs. Got the keys at 10:52 a.m. Stood in the empty living room of my house at 11:30 a.m. and felt a level of accomplishment I'd never experienced. This was mine. All mine, and nobody could take it from me or tell me I was moving too fast or that I should wait until the timing was better. Drove to the grocery store after and picked up everything on her list plus steaks because I felt like celebrating. Got home at 6 p.m. She was on the couch watching reality TV. Asked how training was and I said productive and left it at that. Made dinner, we ate. She complained about her boss, I nodded along. And the whole time I was thinking I own a house and you have no idea. What I did over the next 3 months to prepare that house without her knowing is almost harder to believe than buying it in secret. I started going to the house every lunch break during work. It was only 12 minutes from my office. I'd eat a sandwich while sitting on the floor planning what furniture would go where and what colors I'd paint each room. Started buying things slowly. A couch from a Labor Day sale that stayed in the garage. A dining table from an estate sale that I stored in the basement. Lamps and rugs and kitchen supplies that I'd bring over in my trunk. My girlfriend never asked why I was leaving earlier for work or coming home later. I told her I was working out at the gym near my office. She said, "That's great, baby, look good." Never once asked to come with me or see the gym. I wasn't working out, I was painting bedrooms and installing shelves and building the life I wanted without her. Hired a cleaning crew to deep clean the whole place. For $100, but worth every penny. The house went from listed for sale to move-in ready in 9 weeks. I'd furnished the living room, the master bedroom, the kitchen, the office, and one guest room. I had dishes and towels and a TV mounted on the wall and artwork hung and plants on the windowsills. It looked like a home. Took my best friend to see it week 11. He walked in and his jaw dropped. He said, "Dude, this is insane. When are you telling her?" I said soon, but I want to be completely moved in first. He asked what I thought was going to happen when I told her, and honestly, I didn't know. Part of me thought maybe she'd realize what she'd been taking for granted and want to be part of it. Part of me thought she'd lose her mind. Either way, I was ready. Week 12, I started moving my personal stuff. Clothes a few boxes at a time in garbage bags in my trunk. My girlfriend asked once why I had garbage bags in my car. I said I was donating old clothes. She said that's sweet and went back to her phone. Books and photos and my gaming console and my weights from the closet. Everything that mattered to me slowly migrated to the new house. Then something happened that made me realize I couldn't wait any longer to tell her the truth, and it involved her making a decision about our relationship without even consulting me. She came home one evening week 13 super excited and announced she'd signed a new lease on a bigger apartment without telling me. She said the landlord offered her a 2-bedroom unit in the same complex for only $200 more per month, and she'd said yes because we'd been talking about needing more space. I just stared at her. We hadn't been talking about needing more space, she had. And she'd committed us to another year without asking. I asked when she signed it, and she said this morning and move-in was in 6 weeks, and wasn't that perfect timing since our current lease ended in 8 weeks. I asked why she didn't talk to me first, and she said it was a great deal and she didn't want to lose it, and she figured I'd be happy about it. I asked how we were splitting the extra $200, and she said probably the same way we split everything else. Which meant I'd be paying $140 of it, and she'd pay $60, and I'd still be covering utilities and groceries while she bought another designer bag. I said I needed to think about it. She looked confused and said, "Think about what? It's already done." I said exactly and walked out. Drove straight to my house and sat in the driveway thinking this is it. This is when I tell her. Called her 20 minutes later and said, "We need to talk tonight when I get home. It's important." She said okay, but sounded annoyed like I was interrupting her show. Got back to the apartment at 8 p.m. She was painting her nails on the couch. I sat down across from her and said, "I'm not moving into the new apartment with you." Her hand stopped mid-brush. She said, "What do you mean?" I said I bought a house 3 months ago and I've been furnishing it, and I'm moving in 2 weeks and you're not invited. The look on her face was something I'll remember forever. Pure shock mixed with confusion, mixed with anger all at once. She said, "You did what?" And I repeated it slowly. "I bought a house. It's mine. I closed on it 3 months ago, and I'm moving out." She started laughing like it was a joke, but when I didn't laugh back, her face changed, and you could see the panic setting in. She said, "This has to be a joke. There's no way you bought a house without telling me." I pulled up the closing documents on my phone and showed her. She scrolled through them, her hands shaking, and said, "When were you planning to tell me?" I said, "I'm telling you now." She said, "This is insane. We've been together for years. You can't just buy a house without me. We're supposed to be building a life together." I said, "I tried to build a life together, and you said you weren't ready, so I built it myself." She said she never said she didn't want a house, she just said not right now. I said right now turned into 11 months of waiting while you spent money on everything except our future, so I stopped waiting. She was crying now, asking where the house was and how much it cost and how I afforded it without her noticing. I told her everything. The contract work, the saving, the house hunting, the closing, the furnishing, all of it. She sat there sobbing, saying, "I can't believe you did this behind my back." I said, "You signed a lease behind my back this morning, so we're even." She said, "That's different. That was just an apartment." I said, "Exactly. It's just an apartment, and this is a house, my house." She asked if she could at least see it, and I said no, not yet. Maybe not ever, depending on how this conversation goes. She asked what that meant, and I said it means I'm done carrying this relationship financially and emotionally while you coast. She said she wasn't coasting, and I said you've saved $0 in 4 years, refused to contribute to a down payment, and just signed us up for a more expensive apartment without asking. That's coasting. She said her student loans were crushing her, and I said you have $31,000 in student loans with a $340 monthly payment, and you make $52,000 a year. The math doesn't math. She said I didn't understand financial pressure, and I said I understand it fine, which is why I have a house and you have excuses. That made her so angry she threw a nail polish bottle at the wall. It shattered and left a pink stain we'd definitely lose our deposit over. She screamed that I was heartless and cruel, and that she'd wasted 4 years on me. I said, "If you think it was a waste, then this conversation is over." She said she didn't mean it like that, and I said, "Then what did you mean?" She couldn't answer. Just sat there crying. I told her I was sleeping at a friend's house tonight, and we'd figure out the logistics tomorrow. Grabbed my keys and left. What happened over the next 72 hours proved I'd made the right decision, even though it hurt like hell. I stayed at my house that night, my house, not a friend's. Slept in my bed, surrounded by my stuff and my space. Woke up to 43 text messages from her. Everything from apologies to threats to begging to anger. I didn't respond to any of them. Made coffee in my kitchen, sat on my couch, and thought about what came next. Clearly we were done, but I needed to figure out how to extract myself from the apartment without drama. Texted her Saturday morning. "I'll come by at 2 p.m. to get the rest of my stuff. Please be there so we can talk." She said fine. Showed up at 1:55 p.m. with my best friend for backup. She answered the door looking like she hadn't slept. Eyes swollen, hair a mess, still in the same clothes from last night. She looked at my friend and said, "This is private." I said, "He's here to help me move my stuff. This won't take long." We loaded up everything I had left in 90 minutes. My winter clothes, my books, my tools from the closet, my coffee maker, my gaming chair. She followed me around crying, asking if we could please just talk about this. I said, "There's nothing to talk about. You made it clear yesterday you think you wasted 4 years on me, so let's not waste any more time." She said she didn't mean it, and I said, "You said it though." Asked her about the apartment, and she said she'd figure it out, maybe get a roommate or break the lease. I said, "That's not my problem anymore. You signed it without me, so you deal with it." She said that was mean, and I said, "No, mean is planning a future with someone then refusing to contribute when it's time to actually build it." She didn't have a response to that. Walked out with the last box at 4:30 p.m. She stood in the doorway sobbing, asking if this was really it. I said, "You told me 11 months ago you weren't ready to buy a house with me, so I bought one without you. Yeah, this is really it." She said she'd changed her mind and wanted to be part of my future now. I said my future's already built and there's no space for someone who only wants in once it's finished. Drove away and didn't look back. My friend said in the car that was brutal, man, and I said maybe, but it was necessary. He asked if I thought I'd ever talk to her again, and I said probably not. There's nothing left to say. He asked if I regretted it, and I said not even a little. Felt like a weight had been lifted. For years of feeling like I wasn't enough or wasn't worth investing in, gone. Spent the rest of the weekend organizing my house, and it felt incredible. Everything in its place, everything mine, no compromises, no arguments about decorating or furniture or paint colors. I put my gaming setup in the office exactly how I wanted it. Hung my movie posters in the basement. Set up my weights in the garage. This was my space and mine alone. Monday morning, she texted asking if we could meet for coffee. I said no. She said she deserved a real conversation and closure. I said you got 4 years of conversations and chose not to listen. There's your closure. She said I was being childish, and I said children don't buy houses. Adults do. Adults who are tired of waiting for their partner to grow up. Blocked her number after that. Her best friend called me Tuesday screaming that I destroyed her, and how dare I ambush her like that. I said I didn't ambush anyone. I told her I bought a house, and she lost her mind because she realized she'd been taking me for granted. Her friend said that's not what happened, and I said then what happened. She said my girlfriend was just being cautious about mixing finances. I said being cautious for 11 months while spending thousands on herself isn't cautious, it's selfish. Her friend said I'd regret this, and I said the only thing I regret is not doing it sooner. She hung up on me. Blocked her too. I was done explaining myself to people who didn't want to understand. My girlfriend had 11 months to be part of this journey and chose not to. That was on her, not me. Got a long email from her Wednesday night. She'd clearly spent hours writing it. Talked about how blindsided she felt, how betrayed, how she thought we were partners. Said she understood now that she should have contributed, but she was scared of commitment and losing her independence. Said therapy had helped her realize she'd been self-sabotaging. Asked if we could try again, start fresh. Maybe she could move into the house with me. Read the whole thing twice. Felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no temptation to respond. Just emptiness where she used to be. Deleted the email. Didn't reply. She'd figured out what she wanted exactly 3 months too late, and that wasn't my problem to solve anymore. The fallout continued, but something unexpected happened that made me question if I'd been too harsh. Her mom called me Friday. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. She was calm and kind, which surprised me. She said she'd heard what happened and wanted to understand my side. I told her everything, the whole timeline, the conversations, the rejections, the financial imbalance, all of it. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sighed and said I raised her to be independent, but maybe I raised her to be too independent. She doesn't know how to let people in. I said that's not my responsibility to fix. Her mom said I know, and I'm not asking you to. I just wanted you to know I don't think you're the villain here. That caught me off guard. I said thank you. She said take care of yourself and hung up. That call messed with my head more than anything my girlfriend had said. Her own mother saw the problem. But it didn't change anything. I wasn't going back. I'd built something I was proud of, and I wasn't going to let guilt or sympathy tear it down. My ex-girlfriend tried one more time 2 weeks later. Showed up at my workplace at lunch. Security called me and said someone was here to see me. I went down and there she was holding coffee and looking nervous. She said, please just give me 5 minutes. I said you have 2. She said she'd been in therapy twice a week and realized how much she'd taken me for granted, how scared she was of depending on someone, how she pushed me away every time I tried to build something real. She said she wanted to prove she'd changed and asked if she could contribute to the house now, maybe pay me back for half the down payment over time. I said the house isn't for sale and I'm not looking for a roommate. She said that's not what she meant. She meant as partners. I said we're not partners anymore. We're strangers who used to date. She started crying right there in the lobby. Said she loved me and didn't want to lose me. I said you lost me 11 months ago when you told me you weren't ready. You just didn't realize it until I stopped waiting. Security asked if everything was okay. I said yes, she's leaving. Walked back to my office and didn't look back. Haven't heard from her since. That was 6 weeks ago. I'm settled into my house now, completely moved in. Every room exactly how I want it. Started dating someone new last week, a woman I met at a coffee shop who asked about the book I was reading. We've been on 2 dates, and she's already asked more questions about my life and dreams than my ex did in 4 years. My ex posted on social media last week. Something about growth and learning to appreciate people while you have them. Didn't like it, didn't comment, didn't care. She can grow all she wants, but she'll do it without me. Sometimes people don't realize what they have until it's gone, and by then it's too late to get it back. I gave her every opportunity to be part of my future, and she said no every single time. So I built that future without her, and now she wants in. But the door is closed and locked, and I'm not handing out keys. I'm 28 years old, sitting in a house I own outright in my name, drinking coffee I made in my kitchen, looking at furniture I picked out, and I've never felt more at peace. My ex-girlfriend is probably still at her parents' house or in that overpriced apartment she signed for without me, learning the hard way that independence and selfishness aren't the same thing. And me? I'm finally living the life I wanted with someone who might actually want to build it with me instead of just watching from the sidelines. Best decision I ever made was stopping waiting for someone who was never going to be ready and just doing it myself.